Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess, where we have opened it up to you, the listener. And I feel like we did this a long, long time ago, where we said, ask us anything. And back then, didn't have a lot of questions. Not the same result this time. Feels like we could be here a while today answering questions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this episode. I'm excited about all these questions. They range from fun to really serious. So
all over the board.
I love it.
And should be interesting. Let me ask the first question to you, and I'll chime in a little bit, but I'll let you take the lead. Will you write a book about your life story? How we met, blending kids, and then losing a child?
So my answer to this question is I do really enjoy writing. For me, it's very therapeutic because it does all the things. It makes you sit in the quiet, which I love. It makes you sit and process things, which also check. Love that. It also allows your thoughts to flow and not be really confined into certain rules. So your thoughts can just roam. And it allows you to honor your emotions. So putting words to how you feel, which a lot of times is really difficult. But when you can take the time to sit and think about it, then I feel like it's more meaningful. So I do love writing. My answer to that would be, I would say a book is in my future, but I don't know when. I need to get my second children's book out first. Are you with me? Which, according to our schedules, I think we'll be able to do pre-orders November 1, which is the second year. Death-versary, is that a thing? Trauma-versary, angel-versary, whatever it feels like in the moment. So I would not rule out a book. That's on my list of things I would like to do. It just, boy, that takes a lot of time.
We didn't discuss this. Will we be doing the book together about our blended family, or you're going to just do it on your own? Or am I reading the audiobook because I'm better at that part?
We haven't even talked about it. Maybe, maybe you read it. I don't know. I feel like I'm the writer. I feel like I come up with all the content.
I've always thought I wanted to write a book, but I'm not a writer. I needed a ghostwriter, which could be you. I mean, if we were writing together, but
yeah.
You also do your own thing. I don't want to infringe.
The possibilities are endless.
My hope, I would just say my hope and dreams for you is that someday all you do is write. Because I know how much it is helpful for you. I know how much you enjoy it. I think you're amazing at it when you put pen to paper or, words to a computer, whatever it looks like. A lot of magic happens, I think, when you write. You're very talented. It's a gift that God has given you. And through the grief, I see how it works and helps other people. And so my hope for you would be that, yes, you would continue to write. And someday that would be all you'd be able to do. And then you'd do book tours and, yeah, Miss Famous Angie. That's what it would be. This is a tough question, but I think it's a valid question and great to address. Especially for all the brokenhearted parents that are listening. How do you cope with days when your heart is consumed with longing? And I watched this firsthand. So if you could just dive in for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you lose a child, especially, but you face loss or trauma, the longing never goes away, but yes, there are definitely days where it consumes me. I mean, this past Sunday, it was definitely a consumed day. On those days, I cry a lot. Like, I feel like the whole day is spent, now I'm going to get teary eyed, but I feel like the whole day is spent fighting back tears because, like, you still have to do things. Can't just lay in bed and cry all day. Like, I can't, because then I feel like I'm not fighting and I'm a fighter. And Sundays are hard, especially because Sundays, it's the day we got the call. And this past Sunday was hard. I wanted to go to the gym with Aric and Carter. They were planning on going to the gym. I haven't gone in a long time because I do home workouts, which are super effective, but every once in a while it's nice to go to the gym. And the gym is the gym we went to the day that we got the call. So it was just hard to go. But I make myself, even though I'm consumed. I mean, I'm sure people saw me, like I was fighting back the tears the whole time in the gym, but I almost feel like I work out harder and fight through it harder. And I'm more like I'm angry at what my life is. And so I do try to work out and move my body, even though that ache for her is so strong in those consumed days. But I do, on those super, super heavy days, try to imagine what Hallie would be telling me. I think about her like 24/7 on those hard days. And I hear her. It's, Mom, get up. Mom, I'm okay. Mom, you're a badass. Get up. Like, I could just hear her saying that. And then that's always running in my head. And then the other thing running in my head is I'm yelling at God to help me and take this, because those days are hard and you just don't want to carry it.
Yeah.
Don't want to carry it. So
church was really
that's
good
my
this past
answer.
Sunday.
Cry a lot.
Yeah.
And I fight through it. And it's all you can do. Pray a lot.
I would just say from a firsthand perspective, church was really good on Sunday. And so you come out of there and you're feeling good. And we're talking about going to the gym, and then you were wanting to go. And then all of a sudden I could tell something was off, and I asked you something and you gave me a short answer back. And it hit me like, oh God, she's going.
You asked me what was wrong. Are you okay?
Because something just seemed a little bit off, and you give me like a short answer. And I was like, oh God, she's going to the gym after going to church. It's like a replay of that day for her. Mm-hmm. Like, it clicked with me after I asked the question. But that's what firsthand being married to Angie while the coping is occurring is like, right? My asking of, are you okay, in no regard was in no way, shape, or form was because I was thinking, I really wanted to know, are you okay? And then when she kind of shortly answered, then it clicked.
I
right?
said,
light bulb goes off.
Yeah, everything's great, as I'm fighting back the tears. And part of that, like,
you could tell things are not great. Okay. That's what, yes.
Right. But it's like, I don't want to cry all the time. And so it's like, if I start to say what's really wrong, then I'm just a damn disaster. And I just want to get through the day. I want to fight through it. So
yeah,
it's a long answer to that question.
It's the point of the exercise today, answering the questions. Do people apart from our family mention Hallie?
Yes, because we have shared so much about her to so many people that don't even know her. Like, it's beautiful, honestly. Like, I have people that listen to our podcast that also now are like looking for signs, even from Hallie, or they'll send me like, oh, I saw this feather today, or, here's a green heart that I saw, or here's some sunflowers. I thought about you, and then I saw sunflowers, or, hey, this reminds me of your daughter, and they don't even know her. And so I think that is like truly beautiful, that people that don't know Hallie talk about her to me. I also keep in close contact with her friends, her high school friends, her college friends. And so outside of family, we talk about Hallie, or they'll send me things like, hey, normally I would send this to Hallie, but I'm going to send it to you. And so that is all super special. Again, I would just use this moment to encourage people. Like, if you know someone that lost somebody, say their kid's name, ask them about them, husband, wife, whatever that looks like. losing a spouse counts. They want to keep their memory alive, even if it makes them cry. So I do love it when people reach out and say, hey, this reminded me of your daughter.
And if you know Hallie, she would say, it's because I'm better than everyone. And
right.
So people are still talking about her even more so than normal. And so that's what she would say. And we would laugh, and that would be it.
Yeah, our audience has grown too. I mean, from the, obviously the podcast has grown, but like on TikTok, I started a TikTok account right after we lost Hallie because I wanted to reach young people, but especially females, talk about self-worth and share the story. And that blew up. I have 23,000 followers on TikTok. For our Facebook Blended Blessed Always a Mess page, we have 14,000 followers. And so there's a lot of people that are following the story that connect with grief and hard times. And so there's just more people that say her name too. So yes, the answer is yes.
And as a marketer, if you heard 23,000 TikTok followers and 14,000 Facebook followers, feel free to reach out to us for sponsorship opportunities. We'd love to make that work. How do you think of podcast topics?
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because Angie thinks of most of the podcast topics.
Yes.
Not all, but 80, 90%. 80 to 90. 80 to 90.
For me,
92.3.
Okay. For me, when I think of podcast topics, it's from just letting life happen, honestly. Life is definitely a roller coaster, and you have two choices. You can either scream the whole way or you throw your hands up in the air and try to enjoy the ride. So it's the same for the podcast topics. It's kind of wherever we are in life and what's kind of top of mind for us going on that week. There's really not a lot of method to the madness other than, God, we're struggling with this week, and how about we talk about it? Or, hey, we might not have, a glaring topic. Let's ask our listeners what they want to know about us. And so it kind of just flows that way naturally. Coming up, I'm excited about one of our upcoming topics, because something that's been weighing heavy on my heart, and I think 95% of people, is talking about the dreaded F word, which is forgiveness. And my assumption is if I'm thinking a lot about that, then so are a lot of our listeners, and everybody experiences it. And, whether it's forgiving someone else or it's forgiving ourselves, like we live in a world where we're all going to get hurt and we all are going to hurt other people. And how do you really navigate that? Like what really is forgiveness? Because those are some questions I'm asking myself. Whether I had a therapist say this to me, like a $5 hurt or a $5 million hurt. How do you navigate that? And so we're going to bring on a guest to talk about that. And I'm looking forward to that because I want to learn about it. I want to know how to do that. And there's things that I also need to forgive myself on. So
I would say it is a topic that you and I have known would have to eventually happen since everything happened with Hallie. And that doesn't mean just as we're having the conversation, I'm not putting words in your mouth. For me, that doesn't mean that it's time for me to completely forgive. But I'm like you. I want to know more about forgiveness. How do we get there? How, especially in different situations. It may just be in a marital situation, maybe with our children.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a great topic for everybody. I think you and I already think it's probably going to be a 2-part episode, if we're being honest. And so that's how sometimes episodes happen. It's like, we've got a forgiveness episode. Oh, it went really long. Now we've got a 2-part episode. Mm-hmm. And so that can happen as well.
At the end of the day, when it comes to podcast topics, the thing I have found to be true the most is, as a human race, we're not that much different. Across the world, we're not that much different. And so when you share your struggles, when you talk about things you're navigating, you'd be shocked how often so many people can relate to that.
The next question made both of us kind of laugh and smile at the same time. It says, how do you two always look so good? Well, I'm next to her. I'm next to Angie. And so that immediately lifts me up bonus points because I'm next to her.
Well, one thing I don't do is share pictures of me in the morning.
Time out. Time out. I am here to tell you that from the very first time that you and I ever spent the night together, and we were older in our life, so we had been married, and so you've had that wake up first thing in the morning event. I woke up and I looked over, I was like, oh my God, she's still gorgeous. And that is true. I still tell you that to this day. I am not lying when I say that to you. You are the most beautiful woman to wake up to in the morning. And that, I mean that with all of my heart. Hallie, strike me down if I'm lying, because that is 100% act. She's not, because it's true. Like Angie does. She could post a picture first thing in the morning and many of you would be like, what a bitch. Oh my God. I can't believe she looks that good. It's true.
Anyway, moving on.
Okay. Next, overall self-care is where I think you want to go.
Yes. So I do 100% believe in this, in that it matters what we put in our bodies. And I would say overall, I've been a pretty healthy person. So I don't drink. I don't smoke. I try to put good things in my body. I don't always do that. I mean, we went to the movies the other night and I ate a whole box of Raisinets. They're gluten-free, by the way.
She had to look because she can't have gluten. So
I ate the whole damn box.
I showed constraint. I set a massive thing of buttered popcorn down with a lot of it left in there because I was like, if I eat all this, I'm going to be my stomach's going to hurt tomorrow. Plus it's just going to bloat me. This would not be good. And I would say I am nowhere near as healthy as Angie. Never been a smoker, never tried a cigarette a day in my life. I have an addictive personality. So I steered clear of cigarettes my entire life. Over the last 6 months, I've lost 17 pounds since my birthday in February, and I'm eating better. I have a sugar habit that is difficult for me to kick. I do like something a little sweet before I go to bed, where Angie could say no to sweets all the time. I cannot. And I've watched Angie over the last couple of years not drinking and her skin to glow better and it looks good and a little jealous. And so I am a few weeks into not drinking myself. I told you guys 6 or 8 months ago that I need to cut back the drinking. But now we're a few weeks into not drinking and I think I'm glowing. So that's what
you look great. And I bet you feel great too.
It's nice to never have a headache in the morning. I would say that. Yeah. My mind is very clear. So yeah, I would say that.
I do believe that if you feel good about yourself, that you do good in life.
I don't know if I've ever heard you say that, but I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Like it's hard to do good when you don't feel good, whether your stomach's upset, whether your head hurts, whatever those things might be. Yes, it's easier to wake up in the morning and be like, all right, let's get after it. Let's knock a bunch of things out. Let's make, all good choices today. It's easier to do that when you're putting good things in your body. It kind of starts with a pattern of more and more good things, right? So
I do have one guilty pleasure that it's not all. It's not all like put great things in your body, but I do Botox about every 8 or 9 months. So I'm always going to be honest on the podcast. I do that. And no one's going to talk me out of it.
I'll always laugh about
I know.
Our very first argument that we ever had was like a week and a half before Christmas. Money's tight at that time of year. And I'm like, what is this $400 or whatever it is? Right. Let's say it's a large amount, right? If you've gotten Botox, it's not cheap.
No.
And I'll never say that again.
You didn't even say anything. You just went, when I went,
I didn't. And then she went, and then all of a sudden I saw Angie.
Came out.
She ripped her face off and then like ate me. It's like, like a dragon.
What happened.
And I've never questioned Botox again. I think at that point I just said,
so supportive
put it on your credit card. And then I won't even ask because I won't think about it. And I'll tell you how beautiful you look and we'll call it a day. And that's how we solved that marital disagreement.
Yeah, it is solved. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. The other thing, and you're going to hear me preach on this all the time, is that, I've talked about Jen's Get Fit group, but I miraculously had started that during COVID, and thank the Lord that I did, because after I lost Hallie, I never stopped working out. I just kept fighting. And I think lifting weights, don't have to be a bodybuilder, but lifting weights is so important for women, especially as we get older, we lose the muscle mass. And so I think that's so critical. I'm not in it to lose weight. I'm in it to feel good. Obviously, there's physical benefits of that, but it's also so important for your emotional, mental, physical health. Definitely. So if you feel like that you're struggling a little bit and you want something to do daily to fight forward, sign up for it and try it for a month. It's $8 off. So if you use the code FIRE when you sign up, and makes it like $22, which is a couple of Starbucks drinks. And so that's a better investment in yourself. Yeah. So that's what I'll say about the comment of how do you guys look good?
And I would just say, I actually stopped dressing myself. So
that's been very helpful.
It's been very helpful for me. I stopped dressing myself, and between Angie and Summer, they dress me. That's fair to say, correct?
Oh, dear God, your wardrobe when we met, whew, it was hideous.
It worked just fine initially. Okay, just fine out of the gate. You were
That's because
okay
you
with
had a white T-shirt on. Like, you can't mess up a white T-shirt.
Well, that's why I
But
went with that.
beyond that, all right. Next question.
All right, this is a very interesting question because I think we're still navigating it to some degree. But how have things changed in your parenting style since Hallie's passing?
So this is a great question. And when I read it first, I'm kind of like, gosh, I don't know if I can't really say immediately yes or no. Like, I really had to think about it, because my twins would say absolutely yes, her parenting style has changed, but they were also 13 when Hallie died. And so they're now 15, almost 16. And so they're at a different stage where they're wanting to push the limits, and they're wanting to, make decisions on their own, and they're hanging with friends, and they have parties and like all of that stuff. And so I think that part's a little bit misconstrued for them, feeling like, oh yeah, my mom's like super protective. I mean, I am for sure, but I would say what I've changed is that it's kind of more in my mindset, not so much in the rules that I have for them. Like, I have the same rules for them that I had for Hallie. I did. They're just feeling it at a different time in their life. But I think in my mind, what's different is my self-talk, and that, number one, I'm not in control. So while I set the ground rules that I had for Hallie, I have the same ground rules for them. I know that I'm not really in control, because when you've been through the most tragic loss, in a split second, you learn the super hard reality check. I think the reality is, like, I could say, okay, no, you can't go have a sleepover because I'm afraid something will happen. And we literally could be driving to the grocery store and have a car accident. So it's like that fear of losing your child or something happening to them. You know that at the end of the day, God is the only one in control. So my mind could go crazy all the time with what ifs. But when you realize you're not in control, then it changes your focus. So what I do more now is I pray a lot harder for God to protect them, and Hallie to wrap her angel wings around them. And I just have to trust God more. I have to, because that is the brutal reality of the life that you live when you know you can lose a child. Like, what that's like. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And obviously I live that with you. And so I see how you handle that. I see how hard you pray. And for me, even, talked about this on the Father's Day episode with David Hochman a couple of months back. For me, I am trying to connect. I got this also from our therapist when I first started seeing her 6 months or so ago. I'm trying to connect with the kids before I correct. Now, do I do that perfectly every time? No. Sometimes as a dad, I still lose my shit. It'll happen occasionally. But if you were to ask the kids on a whole, I work at coming in a lot calmer so that I can connect with them before I correct. And that does seem to go better when I follow that pattern. Had a scenario just yesterday where I had to do some disciplinary work, and it was very calm. And it was more about, if you always talk about wanting respect from me.
Which scenario are you talking about?
The one you weren't a part of.
Got it.
Yes. Yes. But it's very much like, you want respect from me. That's great. Then you need to respect in return if you want those kind of things. And yes, I want your devices until you accomplish these tasks. But that was handled much better because they understood, gosh, I do always say I want to be respected, but now I'm not giving it back. And so before Hallie died, that would not have been something that I would have even given a shit about. It would have just been like, you didn't do it. It's my way. We're doing it my way. Tough shit. And 9 times out of 10, I don't handle things that way anymore. There is that time where I do about 1 out of 10 times. And unfortunately, it's usually with the same child.
I think the mind over the emotions is a powerful tool, because your emotions and your feelings can just make you go crazy. It'll make you stay in bed. It'll make you lose your mind. But, like even in the scenario where you want to lose control or you want to stay in bed, like your mind will tell you to get up. It will overpower your emotions if you're focused on that. So while for me, it'd be great if my kids never left the house, because then I wouldn't have to worry about it. I also know that they have to live their life and they have to make mistakes and learn from them, just like I had to. So there's that aspect of the mindset shift that I think is more powerful for me after losing Hallie than it was before.
So then this would ask a follow-up. Do you find yourself more strict with your other children, more protective, and specifically with Summer as she starts dating and getting older?
Here's what I would say with the dating scene is when we came home from the hospital after we said goodbye to Hallie, we all made a pact together that we would never again, collectively as the crew, they date someone and the family has concerns, that they will listen. And so they have all learned the worst possible lesson in the most heartbreaking way, that sometimes you can't see the red flags, but your family and friends can, and that you need to listen. So part of that on the dating scene, I don't really have to say much because they've witnessed the most horrific scenario. I think for right now, Summer is dating, and I do feel like my kids have high standards. I know it's early and they're all, they're going to date people that maybe aren't the right fit, but I don't know. Right now, I don't have to say too much in that scenario. I feel like,
I feel like right now there's a lot of self-policing as siblings. Yes. Because if we go back, I mean, we talked about this initially when Hallie passed. It was there's 8 of us at the time, right? And now Hallie's in heaven. There's 7 of us. If you would have said Hallie's alive and we would have sat down as a family, had a conversation, the other 7 of us would have said to her, "This is not a good individual for you. It's not going well." That would have not been well received by her, right? And if you reverse roles and put any of my kids in that situation, my kids wouldn't have received that well. But like you just said, now that the worst scenario has happened because of that, everyone is a little bit more, okay, maybe we can sit down and listen to what the family has to say, because we've all unfortunately experienced the worst thing that Hallie has gone through.
Well, we're trauma bonded, and they all collectively do value each other's input, to sum it up. So I like the term self-policing, because I do think it matters what their feedback is. So,
and then just building on this, Follow-up question. Do you feel overprotective? Do you try to let them learn on their own and give them guidance, or just gentle reminders?
So I don't feel like I'm more protective than what I was before, but I will say what has gotten stronger is my mama bear instincts because they were validated, if that makes sense. So I will tell you that if you hurt my kids or bully them, then I feel my mama bear instincts of like, oh my gosh, like I just want to protect them. So I have this fight in me for my kids. It's like off the charts. And, we're close to 2 years, and I would say that has not died down at all. It's almost gotten stronger. I will say my kids feel that. They feel like I am super protective of them, not so much what I let them do. Like I've even thought in my head, like, I hope nobody ever tries to like steal my wallet or something from me, or try to like hurt me when my kids are around, because I don't know. I don't know what would happen. I mean, I feel that in my core. Like,
Yeah,
I've had the worst possible thing. Please don't F with me. That's what I feel.
Totally get it.
So I will say I've always been this type of parent of letting them learn on their own within reason, right? But then when they don't make good choices, then I tighten the rules. So I'll give you an example. My twins had went to a party a couple weeks ago, and I laid down the rules. Like, here's these 3 things. This is what I expect from you. And they didn't follow them. And so like in that scenario, I don't lose my mind or yell or chew them out. Just know next time they ask, it's going to be no, because I laid down the rules for you this last time, and here's the choices. And now you have to go back and regain trust. And so it's just, I keep it pretty simple with them, knowing that they need to be able to make their own decisions under the guardrails, and there's consequences. But in general, they work hard. They go to therapy. They're kind to people. They have faith. And at this point in my life as a parent, I can't really ask for too much more. I'm grateful I'm their mom and that we're all still breathing. And I know that this is super hard for them. They worry about their parents. They worry about me and my happiness. And I worry about the long-term impacts on them, much less than I worry about me. I worry that they'll remember the last couple years at home as like their mom being sad, but then mindset shift, right? I don't have control over what happened to us. I don't have control over the devastation, but I can control my fight, and that they see their mom getting up every day.
I continue to try to just be a different parent, because when Angie and I met, my kids would say, thank God, because they see how she parents her kids. And it's forced me to give them some more leeway, because I was definitely a parent that's like, no, we're just doing it my way. You don't need to make your own choice. I'll make it for you. And I would say there are some benefits to seeing your kids start to make some of their own choices while they're in the home, so that if they are making choices poorly, you can correct those while they're in the home, rather than once they're gone, it's a little bit harder to do. So I would say, yeah, I mean, from that aspect, I do watch Angie and the way she parents. I still do my own thing. I mean, it's not like I'm making her 100%. I still make her cringe at times, but my kids would tell you that I have evolved as a parent. I think Angie's kids would tell you that as well, from the time that we started dating and got married. This is one that I have dealt with for years. But for you, this is new since we started the podcast. You're both well known in the community. How do you handle random people coming up to you when you're in public at a kid's function? Does it feel like a burden or a blessing to you?
So it is definitely not a burden, but it is new to me because, but yeah, to your point, you've always had people come up to you and you don't know who they are, but they know you. And so that part has been, for me, I love it. People come up to us and say, hey, I listened to your podcast. It makes me like, I wish I knew them. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I knew who they were. So I'm glad that they come up and say that and share that. Even just messages that we get on social media, I love reading them. So it's definitely not a burden, but it is like, it's not weird. It's just like, oh shoot, like you don't know who's sitting around you, that listens to your podcast, and they end up knowing more about your life than you know who they are, so that part's.
Yeah, 28 years in October, 29 years in October since I started being on the radio. And so you just get used to it. But it is weird. Even we were talking this week, my buddy Scotty and I, he was telling a story. We were just telling stories of listeners over the years. And there was this lady, she would call in all the time, and then all of a sudden one time she called and was like, Scotty, this has to end. Like this is, and he was like, what is she even talking about? Like she was talking like they had some kind of illicit affair. And he's like, what in the hell? And like, we both knew. So like, where did this even come from? Probably 10 years ago, before you and I knew each other, I had a buddy of mine at a car place call me. He's like, this lady's in here. He's like, I mean, she acts like you guys are close. And I'm like, I've never met this. Like, she's a listener. Like, I know she listens, but never even met her in person. So I'm like, that's a normal thing that happens. And so you hear a lot of stories about yourself that some are maybe true, most are not true, when you're like, I don't even know that person. And that's happened to me a lot over the last 29 years. There was a lady once upon a time in another city that knew Scotty and I were going somewhere once, and she put signs up on the road, on the highway, like for us. And we were like, we don't even know this lady. What is happening? So I know that for Angie, it's been more of a...
You've gotten more of the odd stuff.
I blow it off.
We don't get that with our podcast.
So just all that being said, I'm just more used to it than Angie is. Yes, I've had more weird things happen to me at the radio station over the years. And we seem to have a bunch of great folks that are listening to the podcast. And so it's kind of, I would say it's humbling and a blessing. It does not feel like a hindrance when podcast listeners come up and want to talk or anything like that. However, that does lead into the bit of criticism that can come. And so that question has been asked. How do you navigate criticism towards the podcast and the loss that you've endured? Always a negative person in the crowd. This is true. Always a Karen out there. You seem to handle it with dignity and grace. What do you think about that?
Well, this is a great one. So have you seen the Mean Tweets skit? Is that Jimmy Kimmel or who did that?
I think it's Kimmel. Yeah. Where like stars read mean tweets about themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say for me personally, yes, we have received criticism on our podcast, especially when we talk about narcissism, but I don't let criticism stop me. I let it fuel me. I love the Theodore Roosevelt quote that Brene Brown, I think, brought to life for so many people, because that's how she came up with the title of her book, Daring Greatly. But it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out the strong man's stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by the dust and sweat and blood, who at the best knows in the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. And I remind myself of that all the time, that it's not the critic who counts. It's those that are in the same arena with me getting their ass kicked every day. And so I would say that if you were doing something daring and you were trying to drive change, you were going to get sharp jabs and you're going to have critics, and you have to be ready for that, because other people's opinions of me are none of my business. I wouldn't go to them for advice, so why would I engage them? And the bottom line is, the critics that we have, and maybe I'll share some of the air quotes mean tweets, but they don't understand. They've never been in this situation, and they don't understand this painful journey. So,
and they don't seem to want to.
There's no way that they could, honestly, because there's no way anybody could actually imagine this level of pain. So it's really impossible for them.
Yeah, a couple of things just about what you just said is, talking about people's opinions. My coaches, when I was growing up, who I love so much, always said, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. They all stink. And that stuck with me for the last 30 years of my life because it is true. Like everybody's got an opinion. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's right. And so we have to be able to shove aside the ones that don't really matter. They're not in the fight with you, so it doesn't matter. And then the other thing I would say too is just thinking about my marketing background. We tell clients all the time, if you're running an ad campaign that doesn't elicit an emotion, positive or negative, then no one's actually hearing you. And then when you're in an arena trying to drive change, like we are, trying to stand up for women's rights, or rights of everybody, and standing against narcissism, you're going to hit the nerve. But that's the point, is that you're trying to drive change. If we were trying to have a vanilla podcast that did nothing other than you and I talk to each other about things that don't matter, then no, we wouldn't offend anyone, but we wouldn't drive any change. With that, how about a couple of mean tweets?
All right. You ready? This one it actually comes from a relative. So I'm not going to say any names. So talk about critics, right? So this jab is from a cousin. So his mean tweet is, and this isn't a tweet, but it's on social media. Shit happens. Let it go. Hey, I have your back, my friend. It's not directed towards me. Rock on, and I will let the dipshits know how I feel. It's like, shit happens.
Yeah, it's like Hallie was a dog that got run over. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Here's another one. I think our listeners will probably get a kick out of this one a little bit just because they've been following us for so long. But the mom wants revenge and seems like she's willing to go very, very far and break the law herself to get it. Wow. That's interesting. They try to be very religious, but lack empathy and grace. They very much cherry pick the Bible. I was pretty disgusted by it. I was just like, guys, listen. So when you ask, how do you handle critics? I just keep in mind they're not in this arena and they'll never understand. And I'm passionate about fighting for my daughter, and that won't stop, and critics won't stop me. So I think, again, everything kind of goes back to your mindset, mind over emotions. I could let my emotions just completely take over and, get into my headspace, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. My mindset overpowers my emotions.
Yeah, I think that's really good. All right, so just a couple more questions. How can you open a conversation to someone that you're worried about, whether that be in a relationship or a job or elsewhere? But how do you say that and feel like you're being supportive or try to not come across as not supportive of the other person?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like so many of us run into that situation where we kind of have a feeling like we're worried about someone, but we don't know how to bring it up, and you don't want to get in their business either if you feel like they're not open to talking about it. But I personally, and then Aric, I would love your take on this. I personally would start the conversation of hey, how have you been? Hey, I'm always here if you want to talk. You could maybe say, I feel like maybe something's off. I mean, I'm just trying to even think about our conversations, because sometimes I'm not the easiest one to talk to, and I more go inward. Versus if someone asks you that, you would be more open and just share everything. And so I think everybody's a little bit different on how you could approach that, just depending on their personalities. But that would be my answer to that one, is just by saying, hey, how's everything been? I'm here if you ever want to talk about what you have going on. We all face challenges.
Yeah, I think you and I definitely handle things opposite in that scenario, although I am trying to pay more attention to who I'm speaking to, right? Knowing that you're going to go inward I have to rephrase how I would normally do things. You're right. If somebody asks me a question, I'm word vomit it. I'm going to spill it. I'm going to tell you what you asked me. That's just who I am. Like, somebody asks me a question, I answer it. Not a good liar, so it is what it is. And here's the answer. But in the past, I can at times be too direct in my just, hey, here's what I see. So I don't know why you're doing it this way, blah, blah, blah. I am trying to be better about knowing who I'm talking to before I would just unleash with the traditional older version of Aric that's just like, why are you doing that? I totally see this. This isn't going to work. That doesn't usually come across very good. So trying to be more helpful, if you would. Another question. This is a good one. What keeps you from anger with God, with yourself, with the relationship that Hallie was in, with maybe the people that are sending the mean tweets that don't understand what's going on? What keeps you from anger?
That's a great question. Well, the crazy thing, and I think I've shared this before, but it's been a while, is like, I really have not been angry with God. I know a lot of people go through those feelings and emotions, and I think that's 100% okay. Like, he can handle the anger. I know everybody that I've talked to that have lost a mom or a child or a dad. It's like, why? Why'd you let this happen? I've not had that with God because, like, I feel like God saved her. And so I've not been angry with God. Have I been angry with the whole situation? Oh, hell yes. So it does. Like, I do go through the anger stage. And I think for me, though, I try to process it to get through it because I don't want to feel the anger. I don't want to live my life like that. And so I think that's also why I really try to think through things and try to process it, because I don't want to carry that. This is already heavy enough. I don't want anger on top of that. Got a lot of fight in me. I'm going to fight hard, but do I want to live angry? No, I don't.
I have had the anger to God, to the whole situation. And I would just say, for me, a lot of therapy, a lot of meetings with pastors, a lot of meeting with other Christian men, because I feel like my life's been flipped upside down, not fair, that it's turned my kids' lives upside down. It's wrecked my wife, and we lost Hallie. And so for me, total gut punch. So a lot of anger that's come with that. I feel like starting to work through that much better, but it's a lot of hard work. And if you just want to stay angry, a lot of people do that. And I don't really want to do that. That seems like Hallie would be mad at me for wasting life that way. So don't do that. Last question will be about Hallie, because we were asked, have you ever stopped and thought about what Hallie's last moments were like? Did her whole life flash before her eyes? Any memories that might have come back to her? Is that anything you've thought about?
So I love this question. So we might have to do a whole nother round of Ask Us Anything, because I do like the thought-provoking ones. So it's weird. Like, I had not thought about that. I had not thought about, like, I wonder what memories flashed in front of her. I actually think about her passing all the time. And what I think about is, I hope she never felt any pain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I actually hope that when she passed away at the scene and they brought her back, that, like, in my mind, I imagine that she really never went back into her body. That, if you watch any of the movies around, like, about near-death experiences, that when they're so near death, that they're more elevated out of their body. That's what I kind of imagine for her, is that she was with us, but not in her body those couple of days, because she had been gone for so long when they brought her back. And I think about her passing all the time. Like, that's always a memory. I think I'll replay that in my head often, because I wasn't there. And, like, as a mom, you want all of the experiences with your child, and you want to know, like, what's going on in their life and all of those things. And that never changes when they pass away, or even her going through something that I have no idea. no idea what that was like for her to cross over and go to heaven. And so I don't know what memories would have flashed. I know we had a great Thanksgiving with her, and that was beautiful. So I hope it's like all these amazing memories of her with her horse and all the trips and the funny videos that we keep seeing on her phone and all of that stuff. So it's a great question. Great question.
Is. And I'm with you. I like to think like in the hospital, she was above us looking down and watching. That's how I feel about it. Well, this is a super long episode. Thanks to all the questions. So thank you guys for sending them in. We really appreciate it. And like Angie said, we may have to do some more, but we are looking forward to a future one about forgiveness that I think many of you will like as well. So that's all we've got. Only other question that I have for you is, are you hungry? Are you ready to eat?
Yeah. What are you making?
I'm going to make something for you. I'm going to cook you dinner.
Date night.
I love you.
It's date night.
All right.
Podcast
date
night.
Podcast and dinner at home, early to bed.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, we hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless. Thank you for listening to Blended Blessed and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.